Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the It Doesn't Matter podcast. And we've got myself, Strap Facts, John, and we have
The Dominican Dream, baby. This is Papi Platano.
There he is. And returning this week, we have a special guest. He is
Mr. Savage Eddie Long.
There he is. And we've got the host of the show. We've got...
I am the notorious one. I am Dom. Boom.
All right, folks, for those paying attention, we were originally going to do an episode of head-to-head WCW Monday Night Nitro versus WWF Monday Night Raw, but breaking documentary, the documentary for Vince McMahon, Mr. McMahon, came out on Netflix mere days ago, and it is the hottest, most anticipated thing in all of professional wrestling, and I believe we've all had a chance to see all the episodes, guys.
Yes, we have.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right. That is confirmed, and we're gonna talk about it and get our thoughts and opinions out about this wild documentary. And Dom, what's going on with the Mr. McMahon documentary?
All right. So, Mr. McMahon, the Docuseries is on Netflix. If you guys haven't tuned in, definitely tune in. It is a must-watch because it got everybody talking right now. So that's why we call it Audible, and this is why we're going to talk about it right now. So, all right, I'm going to get right into it. Guys, from watching this Docuseries, did you guys expect it to be about the man, Vince McMahon's career, or were you expecting all about the allegations? Like, what were your thoughts on that? Anybody?
Well, because of the documentary, I mean, we obviously knew it was coming out for a while, but I kind of was expecting to hear more about the lawsuit, the Janelle Grant lawsuit, and more of the allegations there than what the first couple episodes were basically the history of WrestleMania DVD. It's like on this show, yes, I know a lot of things, and it's because I've watched a lot of things, and a lot of it was retread information for me. It might have been new information for someone else, and I understand that. I can appreciate that. But for me, it was a lot of retread information. So I was greatly anticipating episodes 5 and 6 to see what new information came out, because it was reported that the first 4 episodes were done. They were ready to be aired, and then things happened, so they filmed 2 more episodes. So those are the ones I was anticipating, and I mean, we'll get to them in more detail, but initial thoughts were there. It was kind of disappointing me. Like I said, I know a little bit too much perhaps about these stories, so a lot of it wasn't news to me. So I was expecting more of the lawsuit kind of thing versus the history of Vince McMahon as a promoter.
Yeah. I was hoping for a lot more new information. That was really the main thing I was looking for, was how much of this have I not heard? Not to say I'm an expert, but I mean, I had a feeling, we followed this man's career in real time. So I had a feeling that a lot of the stuff that they were going to go in depth about was stuff that we were familiar with. But I knew there'd be some new information, and so I was really excited to learn some of it. And I wanted to take an opportunity to say, before we really get into it, like about the tone of what we're about to do, right? Like, we are here to review a documentary. We're here to critique a piece of work, a piece of media produced by Netflix. And the subject matter excites us. And so as this episode plays out, there's going to be excitement because we're going to be recounting a lot of memories that we just really love. And there will be some new information we'll go over about something we know everything about. And so we'll be excited about that too. But we know how to read the room, and, we're going over this man's career, and he, revealed himself to be a person of questionable character. But it can't and it won't take away from some of the excitement we're going to feel as we go over this material, because it was an exciting time, at least the parts that we knew and we were exposed to in real time. The documentary is about stuff maybe we didn't know, and there was some of that in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna second on both you guys too with that, because I'm also thinking right now, just like how WWE is gonna be on Netflix starting in January. So to put out a piece like this, it's just gonna bring more eyes to the product, whether the guys in the business or just coming into the business even want to see it or don't want to, they actually want to shit on it because they think it's like one-sided. we'll talk what our opinions are down the road. Once we're done towards the end, but to put out a documentary like this, knowing that the WWE product is coming to Netflix in January, regardless of how anyone feels towards the product, it's probably like a really smart idea if you think about it, because you have these casual fans that may never have watched wrestling or any type of wrestling. Now they have a insight to one of the promoters that given us an entertainment to something that we might not have even expected, with all the other allegations that we have to talk about too.
Yeah, just like Platino was saying that Raw is coming to Netflix next year in January. This docuseries is not WWE produced.
No.
So you're going to get WWE Raw and you're going to see Mr. McMahon. So you put in that search column, you're going to see, Mr. McMahon pop up. And, it's definitely going to open the eyes to everybody out there.
Yeah.
It was kind of a risk because for some of the fans that are just coming in by way of Netflix, they were exposed to this, and then when the product comes, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to associate and they're going to go, I don't know. Or they're going to, maybe this will help them see, if they're kind of smarter than we're giving them credit for, maybe, that this man is not a part of this organization anymore.
Yeah.
This is a part of the reason why. This is this person. He's over here. And we are separate.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so this docuseries, it had chapters. It basically started from him as a kid growing up, and then it went to the steroid era. Basically, it was the Hogan era, the modern day era, ruthless aggression, attitude era. Was there anything throughout all these chapters that you've seen through the docuseries, the 6 chapters, that caught your attention? Anything that stood out to you that you did not know? Platino?
I want to say his childhood, because he never really brought it up, and he's even said in the beginning of the show. He said, "I'm gonna let you guys know what I want you to know, not that you need to know." So there's still like a guard or a shield in front of him, where there's probably something behind closed doors that he wants to let out, but because he's so guarded and he doesn't want to put the emphasis on him, and he's never really done that. He's all about business, from what he tried to make it seem like. There's more to the story that we even know, and we probably will never get to it, because he's not going to reveal it to anybody, because he wants to play one role to everybody in public, but there's probably like another side to him that we'll never see unless you are in that circle of his. So that caught me off guard a little bit.
What about you, Strap?
I like to randomly come up with things in my head as people are talking, pull bits and pieces. And, so what is something you could pull away from the documentary? Anything new? Well, it's not. I don't think it's anything new that Vince McMahon is, he was upset with his portrayal. But Vince McMahon is kind of delusional in a way. And so, he has his documentary. He's like, you know what? He's so cocky and he's so delusional. He thinks, I'm going to participate in this documentary for the first time ever. It's going to expose my life, show all the bad things, show all the good things. I have nothing to fear. I am not afraid, because he's so cocky and so delusional. He thinks nothing he's done in his life is ever wrong, which reminded me of an ex-girlfriend I had. Okay, we're having one of those relationship checks, okay? And she wanted to hear, oh my God, I still love you. Let's have this wonderful relationship. Let's keep going. But I was like, no, I don't know what you see, but it is not going well. It's not going well at all. We need to change some things. We need to fix some things. And she took it as an attack. I'm like, I'm not attacking you. I'm being honest. You want a relationship chat. This is what it is. Like, there are things, and if you thought, it doesn't matter what you think, that things were going well, you're delusional and you're wrong. And well, we're not together anymore. So she was delusional and wrong. So either I'm delusional and wrong, or she is and was. But yeah, that was the cockiness he had. And I mean, we're going to jump back and forth here a lot, but your actions Duke can come back to haunt you. Granted, this one action, I'm moving on a little bit here, but this one action of Vince McMahon 25 years ago is the reason why he's in the pickle he's in right now. And that one move was making the WWF go public. Because if they were still a private company, no one would care if he used stockholders' money, because there would be no stockholders if it was a private company. He decided to put WWF public and on the New York Stock Exchange, and because of some whistleblower, the federal government had to investigate Vince McMahon again. And I know, things happen in life, 25 years worth, but the idea, and they showed this in the docuseries, them going public. And if he didn't make that one move back then, he wouldn't be in the trouble that he's in right now.
What was the name of the restaurant that they had in New York City?
WWF New York.
WWF New York. John, you're exactly correct. And when you think about it, was it worth it even in real time? Because he even says in the documentary, going public allowed us to do certain things, branch out. And he literally drew a connection from them going public to them being able to buy a restaurant. Where is that restaurant? And I forget some of the other examples he gave, but it was just like a list of things that like we don't see anymore. Like, are you happy that you were able to buy those things? Because you don't even have them anymore. And now, and now all of this. But the question was anything that stood out. The thing that stood out to me the most about this whole documentary is actually about Shane. We all know that Shane goes above and beyond. It's literally his gimmick. Like he goes above and beyond every time. And seeing him go from office character to live, in-ring performer, watching that happen, I was so sure that he was proving himself to us, that he was saying, I didn't get this position because of my last name. And if you think I did, I'm still going to earn it every single night. I immediately felt that way about Shane and always have.
Yep.
And this documentary showed me that I was wrong. I never would have guessed that was happening in that house, in that family, where he had to feel like he had to prove himself to Vince. I never would have saw that coming. I guess it sounds kind of silly because Vince is a cold person, but no, he loves the people he loves.
Yep.
I just was really, really shocked by that. I was shocked at how shocked I was by that, because I was so sure. And that's why I love Shane. I thought that's why we all love Shane, because he always proves himself to us. And we get it, bro. And you wearing the Jordans every single match. You didn't even need to do that. We get it, Shane. You're just like us. And he is. And I was just so sure of that. And I was wrong. He was always trying to prove himself to Vince. And that really surprised me. For Vince, it was, when he was recounting his role model. How interesting was that? What's Vince McMahon's favorite wrestler of all time?
Was it Dr.
Right? We got that.
Dr. Jerry Graham.
Dr. Jerry Graham. Who even thought to ask Vince that ever? It just didn't come into my mind. And we got that answer. And, we all had role models when we were kids. They're typically a positive influence, right? Yeah. I never really was that great at basketball, but I was always inspired by Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? I watched a documentary about Luther Vandross recently, and the first time he ever saw Dionne Warwick perform, he said, I want to do that. I want to connect with the crowd the way I know she knows she's connecting with me right now. And he was sold. That was his positive influence, his role model. Vince McMahon's role model was a heel. Was always a heel, and I just think that that's interesting.
Yeah,
I agree. I see where you're definitely coming from. Vince, he has the worth ethic of his dad, Vince Sr. He worked his way up. He earned that company. In the documentary, it said that originally the original plan was Gorilla Monsoon. He was supposed to take over the business, but it didn't happen, so Vince had to make payments, and if he missed one payment, you're done. But he made all the payments, but why do you think he didn't give Shane that same opportunity to when Shane wanted to, be involved with UFC? I know Vince believes that, WWE was more of a character base. After these dudes lose one or two fights, they're basically done. But if Shane wanted to prove himself, and granted, if he didn't have the money, why don't you just assist him, let him operate the joint, and let him just, take over? Like, why wouldn't he give Shane that opportunity the same way Senior gave Junior?
I think he was afraid that he was going to succeed. He may not have said it directly, but Shane is actually not a dumb guy. He's a very smart businessman. If you actually look up some of the stuff he's done, and to see if he were to get a hold of the UFC, the whole TKO merger would have happened a long time ago, and UFC probably would have expanded a lot faster than it already has. I don't know how that whole dynamic works with the UFC. It's completely different than the WWE, but I do understand his perspective where with the UFC, anybody gets knocked out, all right, your star's done. You can't really make a star. But you had guys that in the show itself, McGregor coming up years later, obviously. You had Ortiz, he was massive at the time. You had Ken Shamrock, Iceman, Chuck Liddell, Rampage. You have a whole slew of guys that you can market and you can bring them into the WWE, just like Mike Tyson, and you have a market that you can use to sell another company that you have. I honestly feel like he feared that his son was going to succeed to him, and he really didn't want his company because he fought so hard. He never really had that from his dad until the very end.
John, you agree with that?
I kind of forgot about the, when Eddie mentioned Shane. It's like, Shane, his appearance in this documentary really did change the personal opinion that I had of him. He was, he seemed like he was just, not self-made, but he didn't need anyone's approval, but that's all he was looking for from his dad.
Yeah.
Especially even up until he has 3 boys, and after WrestleMania 32, that the long camera shot of him hugging Vince backstage, and it's kind of geez,
yeah,
even to this day, that was a couple years ago. It's he's still seeking his dad's approval, and that's, I'm glad that he got that moment, and he seems like a really good person, Shane McMahon. But for him to still seek it, even at the point of his career, the point of life that he is at, it's geez, what spell does Daddy Vince have over him? And not just Shane, but they mentioned the father figure aspect for many people, Hogan and Bret, Shawn, and so many people. And it's Undertaker, he's such a father figure. So that was one aspect of Shane McMahon being on the series that I was surprised by a little bit. As for why didn't Vince assist Shane? There's that tough love aspect. It's if you had the money and the capital, go ahead. But he didn't. Why didn't Vince give him some help? I think that was kind of part of the tough love kind of thing. Kind of if you had the money, I'm not going to help you with it. But if you want to do it so bad, if you have the money, then go for it. But if you need a loan from me, maybe he didn't ask, and he didn't, and Vince didn't offer. So could it have been successful at that time? It might have been interesting. One of the not the most infamous periods of time for the IDM pod here is 2009, 2010, 2011. That's around the time Shane left, and that's the time when WWE was just suffering creatively and with talent wise. It was just who wants to watch this? So maybe that era, then maybe that era would have been the good time to merge with, or be associated with UFC and a TKO kind of merger. Hey, they're there now. Shane's not involved like that, but they're there now. So
it's funny that it ended up coming back around to that, because that is what you think. You have to think of that right away when you talk about the UFC aspect. That we ended up doing this anyway. God, if you just listen, it was interesting to hear Vince's perspective on that, because he's right. Shane was thinking big picture, but he was out of line. He was out of line. That wasn't his job to do that. And Vince was the person whose job was to do that because he also had the purse strings, right? And so he is really the one who can make those decisions. And so he was like thinking, what did he say? I can make characters like Disney and then market those characters. You know, Mark Calloway's going to pass away soon. I bet you could still find an Undertaker action figure, and I bet you Vince is still going to get rich off of it. You know what I'm saying? That's what he was talking about. UFC guy breaks his leg. I mean, you just can't market him anymore. You can't get anybody to buy a ticket to come see him anymore, which was the only way you had to get rich off of him. So he was right. You know, working at a restaurant that used to exist called High Fives, where I met Dom. I made the menus and stuff, did like their marketing, and they had fried pickles, and it was all I ever heard anybody talk about. And one day, the owner, a man named Dez, said, "We're going to take fried pickles off the menu." And I'm like, "Are you insane? That's all anyone ever talks about." And then he began to explain to me, you know, the logistics and, you know, how much it costs to store them, the different things he needed to prep them, and how it just wasn't factoring in. And that was his side of it. And I was like, okay, you know, what can I say? But okay. But I'm just like, wow, you know, there is that other aspect that's almost more important than what the people are talking about. Sometimes money talks. But I mean, I think it was just tough love. I think it was just that simple. He knew that he should keep Shane, you know, swimming on his own when it came to those kind of big deals. He never made a huge deal like that before. And then he was like, "I want to buy the UFC." Vince was like, "Dude, hold on for a second. You know what I mean? Chill for a second." So I think it was just that simple. But another thing that was revealing, Vince said, I think it was in, you know, regard to the territory days, he's probably just selling it to you, but there is some truth to the concept of him not taking anything from anyone. I'm building, he said. I'm building. So, you know, sorry, there's a bunch of bricks out here. I'm using these bricks now. I'm building. I'm not taking them from you. I'm building. And it's like, you're still taking from people, but I mean, you needed to hear Vince say that. That's, of course, how he thought of it. I'm not taking anything from anyone. I'm just doing my own thing. If you guys lose out on it, should have fought harder.
Well, I'm glad that you're talking about the territories and how he, you know, was building up the WWF, because Vince had a bigger picture for pro wrestling. He wanted to be, you know, pure entertainment. So you see this guy going to every single territory and stealing all the top guys. Basically, you know, you want to be the best, you got to have the best. That's how it is. So how do you feel about him going territory to territory and taking all the top guys? Strap, what do you think about that?
I think I have more thoughts on him claiming that Eric Bischoff did it to him than him doing it to other people. But I mean, it is.
Yeah.
So the reason why, the negative of that in the 80s of Vince pulling all the superstars from all the territories, aside from the promoters themselves that lost the talents and end up losing their businesses, was that a bad move? Like, I don't think so. I mean, maybe we're all biased because of the history that we've come to know. Like, every single person at WrestleMania 1 through 6 was stolen from a territory, you know, where they were originally a bigger star. And it's like, what's wrong with that? You know, that's a business move. I'm offering you more money to come work for me than where you work. And that model wasn't going to last long into the 90s. You know, that's why they say, you know, the advent of cable television and pro wrestling and any multimedia that exists, they always go together. You know, in the 50s when TVs were in people's homes, wrestling was on. Cable TV exists, wrestling is on. Streaming, wrestling is on. They're always tied together. So anyway, but the territory model just probably wouldn't exist anymore. I mean, it was just old fashioned. It just was played out. So going national was the correct move, and Vince pulling all the talent to make a national expansion for all the the promotion and the the propaganda, I agree with it. I think it was a good move. It was a good business move. Let me take your top talents. I have the money. Maybe he had the money to afford to take them, to take the Hogan away from the AWA, to take Hacksaw and Jim Duggan from Mid-South and Dusty Rhodes from Georgia. Good for Vince. Good move. That's why that's why he's a genius, right?
He thought of it first.
Yeah.
Period. With the way the territories were set up and the rise of cable television, this was inevitable. They're mad at him because he thought of it first. And he probably thought of it first because he was the one that had the resources to do it. That's why they're mad at him. It was inevitable. He thought of it first.
Well, they talked about it too. They also said the WWF back was the most successful territory out of all of them. So if it wasn't gonna be him, maybe Shane would have thought about it too down the road and be like, listen, we got all the money up here, we got all the big TVs, because TV was bigger in New York than anywhere else. Unfortunately, nobody wants to admit that at that time. But if you're on TV in New York, you're gonna be selling. So imagine that the territories were gonna be shut down because who wants to see same wrestlers every single week in the same area every single week? I know NXT it's a little bit different because you're in the same arena, so different stars every now. You're talking about a back in the day where you maybe like full of guys you'll see. I know they say, oh, same territory, you have to change it time to not have the same match on TV, but he knew what he was doing. You little guy here, little guy here, that guy, and then you get that big, and that's what created WrestleMania too. Interesting to find out that it wasn't Hulk Hogan who was his first choice for the national expansion. It was Dusty Rhodes, and just Dusty was a little bit afraid of. I don't know if he was afraid of the backlash because he was still cool with a lot of promoters back then, but Hulk Hogan was like, "Fuck this, I'm getting paid."
You know what Scott Steiner would say about Vince McMahon choosing Dusty Rhodes first? He's fat.
Mark clip.
So we all love Bret the Hitman Hart. And
yes, we do.
The way he got on Vince about taking everybody from the territories. Bret, you were one of them. You complaining about, Vince, a little hyena. He went down to every single territory and took everybody. Yes, he took you too. You could have stayed in Stampede Wrestling, but
Stampede
you had greener. You went to greener pastures. You had a better career elsewhere instead of being in Canada.
Greener pastures and sunnier days.
There you go.
Stampede was already dying, and even Stewart said, "Yeah, you're better off going to New York."
Yeah,
exactly. So why would he even say some dumb shit like that?
No, because I think, like I said, Dad knew what was going to happen. You're better off going to more exposure and being here, being stuck in the mud. You go over there, you're going to get more exposure. You're going to get a better check and a better way of living. So he wasn't necessarily stolen. He was practically given away because his dad couldn't really pay him. He knew his son was going to be a star. He just needed to be on a better territory to show.
Well, Bret Hart's also bitter for many reasons, but he's also bitter because Vince McMahon didn't live up to his end of the bargain. Like, Vince bought out Stampede Wrestling with the promise of still paying a certain amount of money, and he never finished paying that amount of money to Stampede Wrestling. So,
Vince McMahon, you're a jerk.
A little bit.
He's aware.
I know. We don't care. And I'll do it again.
All right, fellas, let's talk about the steroid era. So, in the late 80s, early 90s, everybody was all jacked up and they were all on the needle. Like, what do you guys think that, should Vince have like a steroid policy implemented at the time? Like, we know that he didn't provide the steroids, but you need to get big, pal. And, they do what they have to do. Do you think that, he should have, hey, guys, don't do this, blah, blah, blah. Just stay under the radar because, steroids was getting big in the early 90s, and then he could possibly avoided all these allegations. What do you guys think about the steroid situation?
No, that pretty prevalent way back in the day. Even when Arnold Schwarzenegger was bodybuilding, they were using steroids back then. So steroids were not a big deal at that time. They made it an illegal drug after the fact. So I can't really say his fault. He just wanted type of body up in. So hey, you got to do to get big. Yeah, steroids were already there. It just was more prevalent in New York, I guess, because there was more money to get that, and that's what Vince wanted. He wanted the 6-pack. He wanted the biceps. He wanted the traps. If you looked at every other territory, the guys were like looking like Farmer John or freaking. I mean,
Haystacks Calhoun.
there you go. Yeah, you didn't see anybody like built like that unless you were Sting or Lex Luger. And even then, until they hit the roids, they didn't look like the guys up in New York. So I can't really blame Vince for that because it really wasn't an issue at that time until somebody made it an issue. I think it was they said Phil Mushnick or
Yeah, Mushnick.
Mushnick, yeah, he was the one that pretty much brought it to light.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, I try to give credit where it's due. He was fighting a good fight. He saw the danger, but it seemed like he singled Vince out. I could be wrong, but I know that most of the articles he wrote were about Vince. I'm not sure how often he went after other wrestlers in other territories. Yeah. It seemed like it was focused on Vince, which is what made it seem personal. But as far as Vince's opinion of steroids, I mean, if Vince could have anything he wanted in the world, if he rubbed a genie lamp right now, he would still be in charge of the WWF, and everybody would look like Sid Justice, and like including him, and that would just be the end of it. That's what he liked. That's what he saw working. We liked it, and all of this real life turmoil is what gave us Bret Hart, and what gave us Shawn Michaels, and what gave us Daniel Bryan, and what continues to make the space where somebody who's much smaller can thrive. And for no reason at all, I'm just gonna attack Adam Page and say even somebody like him could be on TV with his complete lack of muscles. It's so egregious. But anyways, I digress.
Emo cowboy. I think the steroid issue is Vince. I mean, he doesn't care.
I'm sorry, Adam Cole, not Adam Page. My bad. Yeah, yes. My bad.
Understandable. But I think Vince doesn't care about steroids, okay? The whole issue with steroids in the 80s and then it became illegal is kind of like, to me comparable to like the food industry. Like them creating margarine, for example, as an alternative to butter, low-fat foods, diet foods, zero foods. It's like this stuff is not healthy. No one ever claimed it was, but people, the general public just says, oh, it's 40% less fat. Great, let me have some of that. Well, what's it replaced with? No one ever asked that question. People still don't ask that question. They take the Coke Zero, and it's like, where's the regular sugar one? It's these products weren't made to benefit you as humans, as people, to make you healthy. They exist to serve a need. These steroids were kind of like the same thing. They existed to serve a need. They made wrestlers look like Sid Vicious and look larger than life. That's why they existed. That's why they're around. Were they healthy long term? Who the hell cares? It's like, all the wrestlers that died young, unfortunately, that they showed, Mr. Perfect, Eddie Guerrero, Benoit, Crash Holly, Big Boss Man even, and he didn't have that kind of physique either. But those are all different stories with different, reasons for their early deaths. But Vince, whether he pushed steroids on his talent, no, he didn't say that. He wouldn't, not in those words, according to like the lawsuit in the mid '90s. He wouldn't say, hey, you should take something to bulk up. He would just make a remark like, should hit the gym more. You're looking a little light there, pal.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he didn't care. He just wanted the end result. He was there for, to make money, for business. Yes, of course he cared. I'm sure, like in a degree, for Shawn Michaels and all his superstars, Stone Cold and The Rock. But in the end, they're just people there to make him money. and whatever means that they want to do to increase their push, like ravishing Rick Rude. He wanted to get off steroids, but Vince didn't want him to. It's like, if you want to push to the main event world title match with the Warrior at SummerSlam, you got to stay jacked. You got to stay looking awesome, But he wanted to have kids, so he had to get off the juice, and that's why he ended up leaving WWF to join WCW. And his son really is his son is a genetic freak. Have you seen him?
His son's huge. Pause.
Sure is. Yeah. But that was one of the reasons circulating back then. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I did not know that. Yeah, I was seeing the son at the Hall of Fame speech, then ceremony. Yeah, that dude. Oh my God, you should wrestle. No.
No.
Oh boy.
All right, so we all know Vince McMahon to be a businessman. We're all familiar with the Montreal Screwjob, but did any of you guys know about Wendy Richter getting screwed?
Before that, no.
No.
That's
No.
crazy.
And to hear he talked about it with such ease, he literally said, "I didn't care."
Wait, before the documentary or before the Bret thing?
Well, in the documentary, it says that he did the exact same thing to Wendy Richter, right, for the same reason.
No,
basically.
I remember listening to the podcast. I think talking about it, and he Wendy Richter thing with I think it was with Connie, and he talks about that, and that was part of it. I remember hearing about that, and then I saw it. I was like, oh shit, they brought that back.
It's just business.
Basically,
As Tony Atlas said, it's not racism, it's business. He doesn't see black, he doesn't see white, he sees green. And that's the same thing with this case. That is only what was driving that decision. Man or woman, we see.
Yeah, I think the only difference between the Wendy Richter thing and the Bret Hart thing, Wendy did not want to drop the belt at all. She felt like she was the woman, that's her belt, and that belongs to her around her waist. Meanwhile, Moolah had it for like 35 some odd years.
Wendy wanted to get paid. That was the issue right there. So she basically, held Vince up. Like, I want more money.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna give you more money. Go ahead, Spider Lady, Moolah, do what you gotta do. We know later on in the years that you don't hold Vince up. Okay, Warrior, hold me up. I'm gonna give you more money. You're fired. Right after that, Jeff Jarrett, same thing. You're fired. So Vince is a businessman. You're not gonna do that to Vince.
Yeah,
He does that so much, actually, you can hear his voice. How many years did this man say, "You're fired"? And now you can. That's the only way he sounds now.
Yeah, I can't hear his voice without.
Yeah.
That's why his lips are so black and blue in the documentary.
Oh, jeez.
Every time he kept saying that shit.
It wasn't because of the tweet.
Because of something. Who knows?
No, but again, I'm back to what I was gonna say. It's Bret Hart was different. Bret Hart was willing to drop the belt. It's just it wasn't against Shawn Michaels. He was willing to drop it. He said it on many documentaries before. He said, "I'll drop it to Steve. I'll drop it to I'll drop it to Undertaker." Because of the way he disrespects me and the way he acts, his antics, I won't drop the belt to him in Montreal. Willing to do business as long as it's on. I mean, he even said it too. Even if you get a smudge, I'm willing to give the belt to you on Monday. Told him that I'm not gonna W and disrespect you. So if the man's never been disrespectful to you, he's always with you for 14 odd years, and he's always been business. Of you, hey, I'll drop, just change the guy. Long, but sometimes it doesn't matter if or not. This is what I wanted to get.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, we figured out that Bret had like a whole month before he even went to WCW, so he literally could have dropped the belt literally the next night on Monday Night Raw, because I think they were still in Canada. He could have won at Survivor Series. Guys, thank you for having me, blah, 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 Boom. Here's your title. There you go. Yeah. All that could have been prevented, but past practices, he wasn't going to try and deal with that shit, Because you seen what Medusa did. They showed it on the documentary. Dropped the title right there. Eric Bischoff, he did every possible thing to tarnish the name of the World Wrestling Federation, and you can't do that, especially with that prize title right there. You definitely couldn't do that. So I get where Vince is coming from. You got to protect your business.
There's a problem with that, though.
Yeah.
It's all the whole thing's a matter of trust. Okay, they're of course they're in the Monday Night Wars, so they're warring with each other. No one trusts anyone, even if lawyers are involved. But there are real things in place here. So Bret Hart could not legally show up on Nitro with the belt until probably the second week of, let's just say after December 8th. I don't know when that DX pay-per-view was. I think it was December 7th, but I don't know. Yeah. He legally, because he was under contract to WWF for another month after the Survivor Series. They could have made him show up on Raw for the next 4 weeks after the Survivor Series, but they just didn't want to do that. Even Eric Bischoff offered, I'll even give you another week to stay with the WWF to do whatever you have to do. I don't want the belt. Of course, Vince doesn't believe that, and maybe any fan doesn't believe that either. Who knows, based on the history. But also based on all these lawsuits that they're facing from the WWF over the billionaire Ted skits, over the Razor and Diesel, copyright angle for when they first debuted. They were not going to mess around anymore with these lawsuits. So Bret Hart, it was impossible for Bret Hart to show up on WCW TV with the WWF belt. But of course, Vince doesn't trust that. Bret Hart came up with alternative scenarios. He came up with, he's like Doctor Strange in Endgame. Okay, he came up with 1 million different scenarios, but Vince only wanted the one where he was in control. So and the only one he was in control was to screw Bret Hart. Did he have to? No. He could have had him drop it to Ken Shamrock, Steve Blackman, the Brooklyn Brawler, anyone. He could have had Bret drop the title any other time, but you know what? He was convinced, Vince was convinced by someone that you have to drop the title at Montreal, at Survivor Series, and you can't let him continue on.
You know who did that? He had era.
Well, Julie Hart,
Vince.
she definitely got to Triple H in 2022 or 23, and then when Triple H hung up his boots for good. Her evil spell lasted those 25 years. But yeah, no, I mean, the Montreal Screwjob thing, there's no way that Bret Hart would show up on Nitro with the WF title, and the reason why they screwed Bret is because Vince wanted to maintain control and did not want to give up power and authority to his talents. That's it.
I understand too. I mean, once you let the what they say, the inmates run the asylum, you're never gonna get it back. So
yeah,
all it takes is somebody who's not even gonna be there anymore, and like, well, you let Bret do that. That's just gonna start a ripple effect. So I still don't agree with it, but with so many different alternatives behind closed doors that he could have with, especially everyone's been saying when you're the champion, you have to have that connection with the boss. But Vince was looking way past Bret. He was always about Shawn, and whatever Shawn wanted, it was gospel. So if Shawn wanted, sure, you can have it, pal.
It was just funny to hear Vince McMahon say on this series, yeah, Bret Hart didn't have much charisma.
That was the best time of his life. He was killing the game on the mic.
He needed his rebound girlfriend, Bret the Hitman Hart, was exactly the person Vince McMahon needed during the steroid trial. That's what Vince needed. He needed a Bret Hart. He needed a safe, reliable choice.
And then went right back to the
boy toy, the Choi boy. That guy.
Yes, that guy. But let's talk about Eric Bischoff, the guy who wanted to kill WWF.
Stupid.
He tried to take all the competitors, he tried to take all the competition, and you can't be mad because Eric Bischoff had the same tactic as Vince. Vince is giving out handshakes and Eric is giving out guaranteed contracts. Like, you can't be mad at that. And Luger shocked the system by debuting in WCW at Mall of America. Can we all, acknowledge Eric Bischoff for doing what he did? Because if he didn't do what he did, we wouldn't get the Attitude Era. We wouldn't get Vince, shaking things up and getting a little more edgier. That's all because of Eric Bischoff right there.
I agree.
Yeah. Eric Bischoff was the conduit, but what you're really talking about is competition, which I forget who it was in the documentary also said it. And it's just a reality that competition makes you hungrier, That's why it's called competition. If you don't have it, you become complacent. And man, complacent WWE is not fun. Not fun.
It was rough.
It was a slow crawl to the, but I mean, you could tell right away, I guess. But yeah, the purchase of WCW, I believed Vince when he was expressing his perspective on the start of the Monday Night Wars. He was nervous to go up against the billionaire Ted. He was nervous to do that. Then he ended up buying the guy's business. Like, I love you guys. None of us are ever going to have a story like that. So accept it. This dude was afraid to go up against the billionaire and then ended up buying that guy's business. So, I mean, he was tenacious. And Eric Bischoff does get a lot of credit for taking on Vince McMahon and, creating an environment where we can get more new memories and more great characters and, factions that we'll talk about forever. But he was also lucky. I mean, he got a lot of the stars that people loved already. So, I mean, like, you're 75% of the way there. As long as you don't forget to put them on TV, you're going to find some success. And most importantly, I don't really know the reason why. Maybe he just trusted them. Maybe they weren't as experienced. But Eric Bischoff really deserves the most credit for letting them just go. He understood that they were talented, that they had something to say. He let them go. This is what upsets me the most about the character, Mr. McMahon is, or whatever, Vince or whatever, because, one consistent reality of wrestling is that the best characters are those individual people with the volume at 11, right?
Yep.
The Rock, Triple H, Austin, Chris Jericho, Papa Pump, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, there's so many people like that. One of the best examples of all time, if not the best, is Vince. It's Vince. It was always Vince. It's the greatest example of this. The best he's ever done, the best he ever was unscripted. The best he's ever offered was unscripted. He let The Rock, he let Austin do their thing. And that's what makes and he also knows what desperate tastes like. He's been there. He knows what it's like to have nothing, and he works for it. So all these things factor into why I'm so upset that now, when they were in their slump, when he was still there anyways, not now, that he allowed it to just deteriorate into, heavily scripted product that was just there to keep the advertisers in place. That hunger was completely evaporated. We're way past the Monday Night Wars, and he's just doing whatever he wants and talk about complacency. And we saw how that turned out. So going back to Eric Bischoff, part of his success comes from having the wherewithal to let these wrestlers do what they do and let them, speak for themselves, at least the top guys anyways. And boy, did it ever pay off. Outsiders, hello.
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of mentioned it a little bit, when we reviewed some of these WCW shows. A difference between the two companies is that, at least in the ring, maybe it wasn't Eric Bischoff directly, but maybe it was his agents, But there's a lot more in-ring freedom for the wrestlers to do more of whatever style they wanted to do versus everyone do the same homogenized style in the WWF. Yep. So Eric Bischoff, he deserves credit, for lots of things. For encouraging WWF to get off their comfortable butts, and for bring cruiserweights to the mainstream, and the Nitro girls and all going live and all those things. So no, Eric Bischoff deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. So the Attitude Era, it was a good time. It was a good 4 or 5 years, you would say?
Yeah,
But you know,
definitely 4 year period.
yeah. So things change. So we know
Max.
how Vince, you know, based his characters. Basically, whatever's going on in the real world, he'll do that. You know, back in the '80s, people didn't like, you know, Russians, Asians, whoever, and that's how, you know, he would, you know, build off that. So then we get to the ruthless aggression era, which is basically a more realistic era. You have your John Cena, your Randy Ortons, your, you know, Eddie Guerreros and whatnot, and I enjoyed it. You didn't need no weapons. Everything was done in the ring. It was a great time. But how do you feel about Vince's tactic to, you know, basically change with the times? Like, he see what's going on in the world, and he would basically put it right in front of you, right on TV. Because if he still had that tactic today, he wouldn't be able to do that. Especially with all the, you know, the Black Lives Matters and all the politics and whatnot. It definitely wouldn't work in today's business. But at that time, it definitely worked. Like, how do you feel like if he was still in the business right now, how it'll work out for him?
Yeah, he would not have any network right now, because how TV is right now about, unless it's on a streaming platform where you know it's movies or a TV show. For some reason, I don't know why, but wrestling's always a different way. It's as if it's really happening, which they get one take on their moves and stuff, but the performance, the stories that they put on, it's a show. It's not real. The problem is a lot of people can't figure out how to blur that line between reality and story. And like you said, the way society is right now is so political, so sensitive. If you stray one way or the other, you're going to lose on one half of the audience. If you stray the other way, the other audience is just going to go in the middle ground. Nobody, it's like, it seems like you on a product for just type of person now, and you can't just multiple people because so this person, oh, I don't like this group, I don't like this group. It's dude, we're all one. We're supposed to be quote unquote the United States of America, but I've never seen us more divided in all my life. It's disgusting to me. We don't talk politics on this, and I don't ever want to get into it, because there's a lot of things that upset me, might upset you, or you might accept something and I don't like it. But the way society is right now, if he were to put on a product with what's going on right now, the networks would be like, nope, we got to cut that off. Nope, you got to change that. It's possible. So you have to keep a younger, unfortunately, for what he wants to do. But with the other company, AEW, they're not catering to them. They're catering to the 18 to 35, almost to 45 demo, where we're just more defiant. We're not looking for that PG product. It's almost like we're looking for that Netflix / Max, all that streaming stuff that has no boundaries.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they go when they're on Netflix and they have that freedom again, because I mean, another thing that was inevitable was bra and panties matches were going to stop soon. You know, like, this was inevitably people were going to catch on and be like, what are you guys doing over here? What is this? What's happening on this show? And society just kind of took care of that, you know, that was going to happen. It's funny to hear, like, the Stephanies and the, you know, Triple H's go back and recount some of the stuff they did, and like, man, I wouldn't have done that. But everybody's in the moment, you know, even the McMahons, they're not desperate for cash. Many of the wrestlers were like, what do you need me to do? I'll do it. Yeah. Just sign that check. Stephanie and Shane never had that issue, but they were along for the ride, and everybody was just in the moment and of the time. And, you know, Vince McMahon was his fall was going to come soon after, you know, something like Me Too. But the way that they carried themselves could only have happened back in those days. You know, some of the TV shows that I like to watch are older, and, you know, they still hold up, but every once in a while there's like a joke about homosexuals or something, and it was just like, they just slip it in casually, and you're like, you just work through it. But some of the Attitude Era stuff, like, there's there's like whole segments where you're like, okay. And even before, right, we know about Roddy Piper's foray into graphic material, if you want to say that, or offensive material. But yeah, the point is, no, Vince McMahon could not, and we love Roddy Piper, but Vince McMahon could not. The show he wanted, his vision couldn't survive in this time.
You know, maybe WWE should stop being so apologetic for their history, in the sense of, think about, and I love being able to relate this to myself, honestly. But you know, my birthday coincides with WrestleMania every year, so you know, it was WrestleMania 40 this year. I'll be turning 40. So, you know, they want to apologize for their history in the Attitude Era with Sable and the hand bra, the hand painted bra. They want to do apologize for the bra and panties matches. They want to apologize for the racism towards all the minorities that they had under contract, you know. But just, you know, matched up that timeline with the natural age progression of a human being, you know, as they're young company, they're babies, they're young children, they're teenagers, still trying to play by the law of the golden era, you know, of what their parents taught them. Then they grow up to become teenagers, rebellious teenagers, Degeneration X teenagers, okay? Then they go to college, okay? Now, college, you're supposed to study, be studious, or you can party your ass off, and that's the Attitude Era. Okay, that's WrestleMania, you know, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, up until, you know, Batista got pissed off about it, up until 2007 when he was WrestleMania 23, WrestleMania 24. That's still college, okay? They're still party animals. That's still Attitude Era, early ruthless aggression, okay? And then, you know, you reach toward your 30s. You kind of start mellowing out a little bit. You still remember the good old days. Okay, and then you get a resurgence in your late 30s, perhaps. Okay, and you look good, you smell good, everything's wonderful again, and you're like, man, when I was young, that was some crazy times, guys. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, whoo, don't want to show my kids those photo albums. No, sir, don't want to show any videos that I had from back then. So the WWE, WWF, they're just growing with some people, you know, their age as a company, according to WrestleMania anyway, you know, they went through the natural stages of life, you know, so they should stop apologizing for the Attitude Era. You know, that was their high school and college times to be young, wild, and free. Great. Now they're mature. They can grow up and they can move on. Okay. And the analogies will eventually stop, but that's how I see it now, anyway.
That is a perfect analogy when you break it down like that, man. It really is like life. You start off young, you're mischievous, you don't know what's going on, you're trying every new thing because you're free, you're new to the world, like you said, and then you're a teenager, you're just rebellious, you buck the system and all that. And then you mature, you realize, you know what, it was okay when I was young, but start making money. I gotta make sure there's some money in the savings. I got kids now, you know. I gotta make sure ours is always it's got on it. I gotta make sure the house has a roof on it. Now we're in our 40s.
You make sure the insulation's in your attic.
Damn right.
The Attitude Era was a great time, just like in the docuseries. We don't show guns. Brian Pillman with a gun.
Yeah.
We don't condone rape. Come here, you rapist.
Yeah.
We never had a killing on the show. Boss man being hung on the.
I'm like, oh man.
I was like, man, there you go. That's the Attitude Era all summed up right there.
Oh my god.
Oh Lord, it was a wild time. It was definitely.
But you pick out of that era the gyms. Like we all know where Austin 316 started, but it was really cool to hear where it really came from. I hadn't actually heard that perspective from Austin, so that was nice to learn. I'm just a bad fan. I didn't realize that, and that's the bottom line was also in. So he gave us 316 and bottom line in one.
Yeah.
Like that 316 overshadows, but we all know that's the bottom line. And I didn't realize that was also the first time he said that was in that speech. So that's what I mean by some of the fun little nuggets that are, gems that we were going to get out of this documentary. Just from hearing the people interviewed. That's what this documentary is all about, is the perspectives of those people that were there behind the scenes for the times that we were all watching on TV. It goes without saying, but that's the best part of every documentary, and that's where you get those gems from, like Vince's perspective on his childhood, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, did you guys watch this documentary by yourselves, or did you watch it with someone in your family that's not a casual fan, or not even remotely that knows anything about the business?
No, by myself. She went to bed. I watched all 6 episodes.
I actually watched it with Nikki, and so she had a different perspective than we do, since we know more about this than she would, and she was like, "This did really happen," and then I didn't know about that, and then so as a someone who's never really watched it like that, it's gonna come to surprise to them with what's going on. I'm gonna go off of what she reacted to, and wrestling has so much emotions to it, and it's like a drama. And just hearing that from her, I was like, okay, you get it, you understand.
Yeah, that's cool.
This.
That's a cool perspective to get.
Like, I don't have to explain this to you. Oh no, she's like, oh, this is my novella. Like, this is like your novella. I was like, yes,
that's funny.
This is my drama.
but also she's reacting to a documentary. Like,
yeah,
I don't think any of us have said this yet, but like, damn, Netflix documentaries are always the best. The best.
Yes.
We all have 100 streaming services. They all have documentaries. I watch documentaries on all of them, but something about that Netflix documentary, I knew it was going to be good. Plus, this subject matter, this is probably one of the first documentaries I'll definitely watch again.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna rewatch just to see if I missed something.
Right.
When I was watching the baby.
Or to laugh again with Tony Atlas and every funny damn thing he said. Everybody gave such a nuanced answer, but they get to Tony Atlas and he's like, "It's business." Nope. Or, I love. He says he doesn't see black, he doesn't see white, he only sees green. That's it.
I agree.
That's it.
Tony Atlas was the only one I was like, "Yep, let me hear what he's got to say."
Yeah, bring us home, Tony.
Well, they weren't getting it out of Booker T, so they had to get it out of somebody. Like, bring him a book. Why are you so serious, man? What the hell?
Well, but Vince don't know about me. Black Snow's not gonna comment on.
But you know what? When they asked about Vince's legacy, they weren't getting it out of anyone. No one could put anything into words. And here comes Tony Atlas with that piece.
Speaking of this whole thing, it's like what I was looking for in episodes 5 and 6 was, I know they couldn't do it based on hot production, but I thought that they're going to have a little bit of 2024 observations from some wrestlers other than Dave Meltzer and Bruce Pritchard. Like, the last interviews were January of 2024. I thought they'd have at least some more from a wrestler, but they didn't. So that was kind of surprising to me.
I think, honestly, once all the allegations came on, they're like, nope, no more secrets, especially Bruce being like one of the top dogs, and they're like, don't give Netflix no more information. All we're going to do is just bury ourselves. I know he was upset about the episodes previous to his interview, but Bruce, I'm sorry, bro. You got to look at the whole totality. I understand he took care of your family, and when your wife was sick, he did a good thing, but good dudes do evil things sometimes too, and sometimes they hide a you were like, hey, I got you, but meanwhile they're doing something right here. They got a knife behind your back. You don't. I'm glad they didn't put JR in there, because JR would have really gave him a different perspective. Yeah. All the BS that he was pulling with him when he was in the hospital, like, come on now, you don't mess with one of your employees while he's suffering a stroke, or he was either Bell's palsy. Like, that was disgusting. I don't care what anyone tells me, you don't do that. Someone who's loyal to you and he's taking care of you, he gave you the rock. He gave you Stone Cold. He gave you a whole bunch of guys for the Attitude Era, and you just take a dump on him because he's sick. Vince McMahon, you are a piece of garbage for that.
And CM Punk's wedding too.
Another one.
So I mean, there's so many examples. Dave Meltzer did say it best though. He gets it. You know, like he said, you know, separating the artists from their work. That was always going to be the through line in this episode. You know, separating the artists from their work. But Dave Meltzer specifically put it. He put it a different way. He said that the fans will always support a business as long as they're a business like this, as long as they're entertained. They don't care about the boss if the product is delivering. We're here to see this, not to worry about this man. He comes into the show sometimes, but you get the point. And he's right. That's the ultimate example of separating the artists from their work. And that's just such a common thing that we all have to work through.
It's sad. I mean, there's a lot of things we did know before and after, but
So this was going to be my last question. I have a few more questions, but since we're talking about it right now, this docuseries right here, does it portray Vince McMahon himself, not the character, Vince McMahon himself? Does it portray him as a heel or a babyface in real life?
I want to say it portrays him as a whole. You get to see the good and the bad. It's just, people are upset because they got to see the bad. I'm sorry. I mean, I know you work with the man and he's brought a lot of money to you and you feel some type of loyalty to him, but a bad man. I'm sorry. I call it right down the middle. I've met a lot of people in my life, and if they've done a lot of BS stuff that I don't co-sign with, I'm just gonna call it out. Like, yeah. So I won't get paid no more because I went against the boss. At least I was being honest.
I think it portrays him as a heel. I think it still shows him to be a heel. Imagine if you can try that there was never any allegations, that portion of his life wasn't a thing.
That'd be different.
What would this documentary show you? It would show you, a crude businessman, a shrewd businessman, and a crude person at times actually, but a shrewd businessman. Two main things that stand out to me is his own words when he describes going after the territories and screwing over the wrestlers or, screw jobs or whatever. And Dom's right, it was right for business. It was just right for business. But to hear the way he talks about it portrays him as cold. He doesn't sympathize with the people he screwed over. He lets you know that he doesn't give a damn. And then one of the funny scenes or whatever segments is when they ask everyone, how close is the character to the man? And he says not at all. And then they show every person that's been interviewed say the exact opposite. Every single person. So it tells you that he's disingenuous. He must know, because you see these glimmers of evil come out every once in a while, like when he talks about the territories, etc. And then, of course, what does he tell you? No, I'm not like that evil character at all. Right? And then everybody who's ever known him that they're talking to is like, no, he's just like that. So it would tell you that he's probably a bad person in real life, and then you can hear his own words and it kind of puts a bow on it for you. So I don't really think it does that good a job at portraying him in a good light. But there are moments where, like, he talks about his childhood, or when you see, like someone like Stephanie talk about how close she was when she was young. You could see he's still a human, but humans do bad things, et cetera, separating the artists from their work and all of that. But no, I think ultimately, even if he didn't have those allegations hanging over his head, even if they didn't like bang down the door while they were recording this documentary, like, hey, accusations here, even if that didn't happen, you'd still see a man that was like not somebody you want to grab a beer with.
Yeah.
John, what do you think?
A philosopher named Plato said that wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something. Okay, anyway. did the documentary portray him in a certain way? I would say that. I mean, I was looking for a quote. That wasn't the quote I was looking for, and I couldn't find it. But that's the best one I could find. But the documentary didn't have to portray Vince as a heel or a face. You let him speak for himself, and you can judge for yourself how he comes across. And by his own words, by just listen to them. Just listen to him speak. He does not come off as sympathetic. I mean, if you wanted, like you mentioned earlier, like, oh, I didn't like how they're portraying me. They portrayed me as a piece of crap. It's kind of like, if you want to show Vince McMahon as a good person, yeah, let's focus more heavily on the good things that he's done for people. For Braun Strowman, for example, if anyone knows this story, Braun Strowman, he would, he's a mental health advocate. He just wasn't there sometimes for himself, and he would talk to Vince, and Vince would give him a pep talk and set him straight. The big SOB, as his T-shirt says. That's touching. If you ever, I don't have any more examples, but you can imagine that father figureness comes from somewhere. That Shawn Michaels, for all his f-ups in the mid '90s, Vince was always there for him. Or another superstar, Vince would, or like Jericho has lots of stories. Randy Orton, giving chance after chance, and John Cena, anyone. Vince, he's probably done tons of great things for charities and society and his top stars, at least. Maybe not the Chuck Palombos of the world. But yeah, you could have promoted those things. But then you let Vince speak for himself, and he says, even they asked him like a question. He said, I'm telling you part of the truth, but not the whole thing, because you couldn't handle the whole thing. It's like, this is supposed to be an open documentary. Well, I'm only telling you a little bit.
And that was like in the first chapter, I want to say.
He opened with that. He opened with that statement. Like, there's a lot I could tell you right now, but I'm not gonna. You ready to get started? You're like, okay, then. Yeah. Okay. I can't. That was awkward.
It came up again later. He's like, I'm gonna tell you what I think, but not what I mean. Or it's like,
I'm like, what?
A lot of two-faced talking, and it's like, you don't have to. Yeah, could you edit these things out? Sure, but you're letting him speak for himself in the ring. Yeah. There's no trick photography or anything like that. There's no trick editing. You said these words. You knew, unlike Hulk Hogan, you knew you were on camera. So
yeah, Vince came out with a preemptive statement to say exactly that, John. That there was editing tricks to make what like. Maybe there was, but I don't know. It seemed pretty cut and dry to me. I didn't feel like there was any of that. Sometimes you can see that. I didn't feel like that was the case. I felt like everybody kind of shot straight. There was one thing you brought up that, or you just made me think of something that I was going to say before. I started to make the point and I forgot to connect it when we were talking about Vince, his philosophy that he's not taking for anyone, he's just building. That might have been a little bit what was going on with Shane, because you're talking about him being a father figure to so many of the boys, which he was. Not Shane. Not really. Yeah. And that sucks. But why? How did that happen? Because Vince's singular focus was his business. And so while he's there doing that, these relationships are going to, happen, and he's going to see them through because they're to the betterment of his business. But what I'm getting at is, his singular focus was his business, even more so than his kids. And so it maybe didn't just have to be tough love that Shane was competing against. His dad might have just been not there. There was just, at some point, it was just Vince was so into his business that he wasn't allowing himself to give enough of himself to Shane, enough that he needed to. And so Shane was reacting to that. And maybe it wasn't that Vince didn't love him. He just was focused on his business. But Shane was interpreting it as that. And so that instills in him the need to keep proving and proving and proving.
Well, that's basically the same thing that Vince Sr. did, because Vince didn't meet his father until he was, 10, 11 years old. He had his mother.
Why was that again, by the way?
They never explained it.
Yeah, basically said his mother did something like towards him. I'm not gonna say like molest him or anything like that, but and his stepfather abused him and whatnot, and then he just came into the picture and basically he didn't get the proud I'm proud of you moment until I think after WrestleMania 1 was successful, and then he didn't get the I love you dad or I love you son until
right before he died.
Yeah, literally like the day before he died. So that's like the only time you've seen Vince really show emotion. Like maybe that's the way that he was brought up.
Yeah, back in the day, people could do that. They would know when they were going to die, and they'd say really cool, important stuff. And then they would, like it seems that way. Like his last words were, "That never happens anymore." I feel. He's like, "I'm finally going to tell you I love you, son, and then you're going to bury me tomorrow." Thanks, Dad.
Like, oh, thanks. We have, and then the next day, like, this guy freaking died, and he.
That's horrible.
That is.
That's really horrible.
Like, you know, in your heart of hearts, you love your son, but you wait till last minute just to let him know. Sometimes people don't even get that chance to tell him.
Yeah.
Because they're so guarded. It's like, be a man, you know. I can't tell you I love you. It's like, you know, sometimes a hug or a, you know, attaboy goes a long way to your son.
But I could speak from personal experience. You know what lesson Shane, I could tell you right now what lesson Shane got from Vince that Vince didn't realize he taught him, which was how important it is to be there for your kids. You could see it, right? It's not fake. Shane, for himself, as much as for his kids to enjoy, said, "I want you to come out with me at WrestleMania." Are you kidding me? I think any of us would have fought to do that. I do. I think that's a normal dad thing to do. I'm not saying Shane's the best one ever. The point is that's a normal dad thing to do. He wanted it for himself, but he knew his kids would enjoy it too. Perfect. And he was built like that because he never got that. So he wanted to impart that on his kids. I'm speaking from experience. My biological father's never been in my life, really. I know him, but he was never really been in my life. So I never really realized I internalized that in this way. I never really wept about it or anything, but I know damn well how much a kid can benefit from, you know, a presence, their dad's presence in their life. And so that's all I'm saying. That's why that kind of stuff stands out to me in the documentary. Shane could have just simply been reacting to the fact that his dad wasn't there. Doesn't matter. He lives in Vince McMahon's house. Vince McMahon ain't around.
Yep. It's true.
It sucks. I feel like in the earlier chapters of the docuseries, Vince was on the, you know, I'm not gonna say babyface side, but they showed sympathy for Vince. But then, like towards the later segments, you see like how cold Vince was, especially with the whole Owen Hart situation.
Yeah.
So I can say we all agree that after Owen's tragic fall, the show should have just been done. It should have been done.
That's another thing. Nikki agreed with me, and we actually shed a tear. She's like, "Damn, this is like someone's brother."
Yeah,
you
family.
see blood right there, and you continue the show. That's so right.
And it's crazy. I never noticed the blood on the ring like that. And I watched that show plenty of times. I never noticed it until they showed it. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, only in the last couple of years did I actually hear that fact that there was blood still on the mat. But I also have never seen it. There was a couple clips that you could see from the documentary. The Rock was like resting near it, and at one point you could see the Undertaker look at it and get shaken, which we don't ever see. But that's what that was. I mean, fuck. He heard about it minutes ago. I mean, they all. Oh my gosh, man, that is crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy to think about.
That would never fly in this day and age.
And the shit that he said, if Shane was splattered, or if he was splattered, or whoever was splattered, whatever, just all right, get me out, let the show continue. The people didn't see. Yes, they did see. Whoever's inside that venue, they seen the cable, you know, snapped or whatever happened to it. Mm-hmm. And Owen tumbling down. Yes, we didn't see it on TV, but like, yo, come on, man. And then his best friend at the time was Jeff Jarrett. He's seen his buddy get rolled out right by him. Then he had to go cut a promo.
Oh yeah.
And then Deborah, she's crying like, how can you be serious about these are my puppies? Like, no.
Yeah.
how do you do that? Like, how do you have your guys go out there and continue on? I'm not sure when that match was supposed to take place. I'm not sure if it was early in the night. I'm not sure if they had like 3, 4, 5 matches left after that. But like, how do you continue on from that?
Let me ask you this. I'll ask the group this. This happened to Owen Hart. I think we kind of understand a little bit of the dynamic that Vince had with not just Owen, but, the Hart family. What if it was a top star? What if there was a malfunction with Stone Cold's one of the numerous vehicles this man drove down the ramp?
It almost happened actually with the Corvette.
So that's my question. If somebody who was at the top was injured, would Vince let it go on, or did he go, it's only Owen, we got a main event to get to, right? But let's say Stone Cold was in the main event, but to hype the show up, somewhere in the middle of the card, he shows up with some vehicle or something, and there's this kind of issue. You going to go on? Do you think he would go on? He lost his main event. Would he go on?
I think he would still go on.
He would.
I think so.
With no main event? Interesting.
He'll
change something up.
Yeah. He'd look in the background and be like, all right, Stone Cold's not here. Who's here? Taker, Triple H, Rock. Get out there.
And that's an even murkier, that's an even more cold decision because, that's an acknowledgement that there was something wrong, but you won't acknowledge what went wrong. Yeah. So it's just like, with Owen, everyone was pretending it didn't happen. He didn't really ask anybody to lie about it. But if you lose somebody in your main events and you got to go out and pretend that like you said, okay, no more Stone Cold, but we're going to throw in Taker. And we just got to pretend that we're into this because he's here for a specific reason in the storyline. And this makes sense. That's crazy, man.
There's one reason why I love Paul Heyman back in the day, because something happened in his show one time. And he went out to the crowd and told them, listen, I was supposed to have this guy wrestle this guy. He didn't show up or he's injured. So, unfortunately, I have to replace him. And he didn't mess around with the crowd's emotions. He told them the truth, and they was like, thank you, Paul, for letting us know. And the show went on. I mean, completely different situation, but come on. Be a human for once. Yeah. These guys are all shaken.
How the hell does the show go on? That is a crime scene right there. You had a tragic accident right there. How? Get the caution.
Let's get some more DNA out here. We need to spill some more DNA out here. What?
Get everybody the fuck out. I'm sorry. An accident occurred. Give these people a partial refund, a T-shirt, something. And
I'm pretty sure everybody in the arena would have been one understanding about that.
I think it's just another, at that time, is another relic of being a private company. If they were public at the time, no. No way in hell.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But if you're the board, if you're the boss, Vince McMahon, you're gonna. That was his call, and this is a very tough call. And in hindsight, you could say, it was a bad call, and I don't think anyone besides Vince himself says that was a good idea to continue the show. Only he, I think, right now would still say that. But he had to make that call. That's what he did. That's what he chose. And, 50-50, you're going to live with it or die with it. And he had a lot to consider, a lot of refunds to consider and giving money back. I mean, yes, people would have understood, but as a businessman, that's something he didn't want to do. But hey, he made a decision. In the moment, it was not a good one, but he made it, and that's another legacy of Vince McMahon. He's the word. He's the word. It's over. He's the boss.
I don't recall after the Screwjob. They showed the clips when Owen, what's your stand? You see Owen coming down from the crowd and whatnot. I don't remember that. And then I guess they were going to give him a big push, and they brought him back to his old blue blazer gimmick. And then instead of him being a top guy, they made him this bumbling.
No, those all happened.
Yeah, I really don't remember that whole segment right there. That whole time period with Owen Hart.
That was maybe a month or so afterwards.
If we ever do a head-to-head of December.
How long was Owen off camera after the screw job?
Owen came
think-
back at the DX pay-per-view. He attacked Shawn Michaels after the Ken Shamrock match.
So that was like a month.
So
or
basically,
two
he had
later.
a month off, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, and he came from the crowd, and so how did the Blue Blazer come back?
So that was the month after the Survivor Series, December '97. In '98, he was the Black Heart. He faced Triple H at Mania for the European title. That summer, he was part of the Nation of Domination, wearing where he looked like a damn road sign. Okay, and then he WrestleMania 1999. He's teaming with Jeff Jarrett against D'Lo and Test, and eventually he started feuding with Steve Blackman. But somewhere between the spring of '99 and when he died, that's when the Blue Blazer came back. So you have to jump a year and a half to get from the Black Heart Owen Hart to the Blue Blazer. Dom.
Sure. Yeah.
I was just trying to remember. Like, I remember seeing the Blue Blazer on TV back in the day, but I just didn't know like how he got from there, from Owen Hart to
he
screw
wasn't
job
around.
to the Blue Blazer.
Well,
Yeah.
do you get it now?
No, I get it, but I just you had to refresh my memory. That's why you're strap facts.
That's why I did. That's why I did that.
Oh man,
There's your dots. Yeah, there's a lot that still happened between the screw job and his death. So
Yeah.
it just wasn't from then the next thing you know he's Blue Blazer again. It's like no, he was the Nugget. He was.
Yep.
Then he had that new music that sounded like Taz's ECW music.
I like that theme song. All right, so the way the docuseries ended, do you think they're gonna be like a part 2 of the docuseries?
No.
Not with Vince. No.
Because you know how what was it? John, you mentioned the other day, Surviving R. Kelly. After everything went down, then they
There's
came
3
out
seasons of that, I believe.
Yeah, they came out with some more info.
We
Obviously.
got a lot of survivors of R. Kelly.
Yeah, so are we gonna get more?
He didn't do it,
Netflix
right?
do it?
I'm just kidding. Sorry, what was the question?
Whoa. Yeah, let's delete that.
Do you
No.
think it's gonna be?
He didn't do it.
I don't know what the
He's
question was,
innocent.
but that's not the answer.
Do you think we're gonna get like a second season of?
Surviving Vince McMahon. I mean, it's a money grab. They could do it. I just don't think it's plausible. I don't think the desire will be there. I mean, they could do it. They could just have like an updated version of the docuseries with like a half hour more bonus interviews. They could do that. Of course they could. And,
I honestly don't think they're gonna do it, especially with Raw going on Netflix in another few months.
Yeah.
They don't want to kill the 2 product, so it's like
I
it's
imagine
different.
them shipping this docuseries to Tubi by November. It's like, oh, this isn't on here anymore.
It's true.
And
Limited series.
to back up a little bit with Eddie, is that I do enjoy documentaries a lot as well. And there is something to the Netflix style that I do enjoy. Now, they're not all great, and I haven't seen them all, but there's a Netflix style that I do enjoy, and they do a very good job with it, at least production-wise. And, for example, if you go like on Hulu and they show, Lacey Peterson's death of something or other, and it's a lot of that ABC News 2020, and they just repeat information so much. It's like, it's just a retread. I'm not spending 40 minutes watching this. It's very poorly done. But Netflix, maybe because that's a commercial that's still on broadcast TV, they got to put in commercials and flashbacks and repeats. But if you're watching
Tiger
Netflix,
King was the biggest deal, so they look at like if we can do.
I think even
similar to
before
this-
Tiger King, yeah. But the nature of Netflix is that you binge it, you watch it straight through once. There's no commercials, depending on the plan you have, and you watch it straight through. You don't need a recap. So sometimes, so the Netflix style is very good, and this was done. The production was very good on this series also.
Yeah, when they don't just retread old information, when they do the work, that's what makes it good. Production value, 10 out of 10. But when we get into the content and what really makes it enjoyable, I mean, the stories, just like anything else, and those come from, finding people that haven't talked about something before or who could show you a different perspective. Like, we have all talked about WrestleMania 3 so many times,
Yeah.
but it occurred to me, just because of the way this documentary is put together, just listening to the people that were involved talk about it, it showed me a different, perspective on it, which is, it was big for a lot of reasons. Hogan Andre, of course, was big for a lot of reasons, but like big picture, it was old attraction versus new attraction.
Yeah.
It really was, which is just commonplace now. We got Rock Cena twice. That was older versus newer, right?
Yep.
Rock was on his way out, him heading to Hollywood, Cena, you take the reins. That was a big deal because it was old versus new, but it was not truly the first time because this stuff wasn't broadcast as much as it was back in the day, or at the time that you were seeing WrestleMania 3. It's being broadcast farther and wider. So this was really the first time we, the fans, society, whatever, got to really see an old versus new, an old attraction pass the torch to a new attraction. It was really the first time because, as Cody accurately describes Andre the Giant, as pro wrestling's first attraction. And that is built into the fans, that's built into the fans. They understand that when they're sitting down to watch WrestleMania 3 for the first time. So that is their attraction. That's the one attraction, but they also are aware of who Hulk Hogan is, and he's on the come up. And so they were just, that was special for them in a way that it can't be special for us, the people who are actually watching that for the first time. And so getting back to the subject, this documentary, the way it was put together, helped me see that. It helped me really, grasp that. And then the other thing that the documentary does, by really exploring a lot of things that we don't see a lot, I had to write it down. Stand Back, the name of the song that Vince comes out and sings.
Stand back.
Little boy.
Yeah, he was trying to carry a tune, and then every once in a while he'd give you this, and it was just like, at the time that came out, this is Vince cut loose.
Yep.
It's definitely his company, and this is what he chooses to do. But I'm not criticizing him, right? Vince is crazy, whatever.
I get big cojones for that.
Sure, but what I'm saying is, what followed? That era of all those crazy, colorful characters, the different eras that brought us to the Attitude Era with all those colorful characters, some of them very ridiculous, but up until like all of our modern day superstars. I'm just saying that Vince McMahon in that song or in that performance, he was flashy, larger than life. He gave you the aggressive every once in a while. He's dancing. He's literally dancing. There's music playing. I mean, it was showing everybody that came after him just what you could do. Like, if you want to be a wrestler who dances, that's cool. Look what the leader's doing, But in the song where he's having fun, like I said, he still gives you the Vince McMahon character. Like, he just showed you a whole range of stuff. He was, every form of entertainment in one. And I just think that's significant because it showed you why all the crazy, ridiculous stuff that this man let happen, that we watched as kids and up till today, like, this is how this was able to happen because this is the guy. This was the first real instance that was the first real example of sports entertainment as we know it based on what Vince's example of it is. Does that make sense? Like, he just gave us all of it right there. What's the fandango, right? Why are you here? Because he's a wrestler who dances. Vince is fine with that. You didn't see the video? Like, he will let you do any of this crazy stuff, so go crazy. And I just think that was significant. Seeing that video like that in the documentary was like, wow, all of this makes sense. Everything snapped into place because he was always ridiculous and larger than life, and that's what he always wanted his wrestlers to be.
That is a positive of Vince McMahon. That has nothing to do with the personal stuff in the lawsuits. That's a positive of Vince McMahon as a boss, is that he would do anything. He would not, I still believe that he would not ask you to do anything
Yeah.
in wrestling that he wouldn't do himself. You know, he would zip line like Shawn Michaels did. I mean, if he wanted to repel like the Blue Blazer that day, then he could have. You know,
Yeah.
but that was a crazy lawsuit. You know, Martha Hart. Yeah, right, Martha.
Yeah,
She sued the WWF. Great, they settled, and then the WWF got their money back by suing the manufacturer. So they're like, whatever. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
sure. But no, there's lots of good things about Vince McMahon, lots of bad things about Vince McMahon. But and then, you know, it was on the Wrestling Observer podcast. They're mentioning it's like, yeah, kind of like Hulk Hogan, our favorite guy there. You know, yeah, he did lots of Make-A-Wishes, made lots of kids happy, did lots of good things. Great. He still does bad things too. Yep. I don't know what Bill Cosby has done his whole life. He's made incredible pieces of artwork, known as his TV shows and his movies and his Kids Say the Darndest Things.
Yeah.
But he's also done lots of bad things.
Yep.
That's a lot of people. So the guy, I don't know, talking about documentaries on Netflix, Jimmy Savile, this British dude that had a children's television show. He did lots of great things. He donated lots of money to charity. He's also a big creep. Yeah. You know, so what do? You take both. You take the good and the bad, but in the end, the bad is worse than the good.
Yep.
So this documentary, regardless of how it presented Vince, how it showed him, I would say, in conclusion, almost, it's like he showed who he was to the audience, to the viewer, and you didn't need fancy editing tricks to show that maybe he's not the best person in the entire world.
Yeah.
You know, he's a human being like anyone else, except he's very rich, you know,
and very powerful.
And very powerful. Yes. Rich and powerful and white.
You got to throw that in there.
Does matter.
You got to throw that in there.
You do got to factor that in. But what you're basically saying, John, like, what was the great philosopher's name? Oh, Shrek. People have layers.
Like a tiramisu.
I was thinking like an onion, but yeah, like a tiramisu too. oh, layers.
All right, well, I feel like we wrapped up everything about Vince, and we appreciate what he did for the business. We don't condone some of his actions that he did inside the ring, and definitely outside the ring. But you know what? We still gonna follow the product. We still a fan because of Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Point blank. But any final thoughts on Vince?
More so on the family. A documentary about the patriarch of a family is inevitably going to be about the family as well.
Yeah.
That was going to definitely be true with someone like Vince, who brought his family into the business that he's known for building. And just like some perspective, and I'm going to age myself here a little bit, but I mean, the video game No Mercy, fun fact, if you don't know or remember, not only, just to talk about how profound of an impact like Vince's family also had, especially in the time when they were in-ring performers. In the game No Mercy, not only is Stephanie McMahon's slap a special, but so is Linda McMahon's block and slap. They were specials in the game that would lay out like Hogan and Vince and Austin and Rock. They were legit hard specials, and they were some of the more powerful ones, which was so ridiculous because I remember some of my boys would choose them for themselves so they could beat us with a slap, you know? But you could do the Stephanie McMahon like slap, and then you could also do the Linda where she's like, ugh, and then, oh my God, just so that's in the video game. So, I mean, like, just a way to let you see, like, what a profound impact they had. But, yeah, you take the good with the bad, just like so many people that, you know, we grow up with, or that we just know so well from popular culture. Take the good with the bad. It's really unfortunate.
Yep. All right, well, Platino, you got a pro wrestling crate for us?
Yeah. We'll shut it down with a pro wrestling crate.
What's the theme?
Vince McMahon.
Mask and paint.
Poop
Vince
emoji.
McMahon and Sable.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Jesus.
You know, they brought that up on Wrestling Observer Radio, but he didn't want to get into that dynamic very much. Vince, Sable, Brock Lesnar. Did not want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Let's see what I got here. I got a Brawler Balls. It's like a Jeff Hardy thing.
Got Vince McMahon's balls. All right.
That would be the first.
We got something from Twisted Metal, and they gave it to you as a wrestling toy.
Very nice. I got a Mustafa Ali and Mac Micro Brawlers.
Mustafa Ali.
Mustafa Ali, and I got Conan, basically.
Glacier.
Go back. Let me see the other one. I see. That's Glacier.
Glacier.
No, that's Mustafa.
Yep.
Oh. Oh
Max
my
Moon.
God! Not Max Moon.
Yep.
Wow.
Totally.
And what were we just saying? What were we just saying? Because Vince has that character, Conan is long gone. But look, we get a Max Moon character or
Yep.
action figure.
I got
You
a
should have seen
Ken,
Conan's early promos.
the revolting blob.
The Blob. What's
I
that?
don't friggin' know. Try.
Some J Brown.
Is that a pin?
From
Yeah.
GCW.
I guess I'll be Danhausen here because I'm gonna be very nice. Very evil.
Fuck has he been?
That's what I'm trying to figure
Beyond
Not
wrestling.
at the gym. Oh.
Baby.
out. What do we got?
Yeah.
Ooh, I actually got a picture with him too. Gangrel.
Oh.
Yep.
I'll take that.
Matt Gangrel, Grasso Tech.
Yes, we do.
Really?
And
Yes.
let's see what
That's
we got
cool.
for
That's dope.
t-shirts.
Do the red light for Gangrel.
We have an Ultimate Warrior portrait shirt.
That's dope.
That is cool.
Yeah, that's dope.
What size is that?
Not for you. I got a friggin'
It's rude.
What the hell is this? It's a sticker?
Of the Blob.
Let's see.
The artwork on that Ultimate Warrior looks like a pick-a wrestler from Nintendo.
It's a Road Warrior animal sticker. Or it's like a Halloween thing.
That's dope.
Road Warrior animal.
Yeah.
It look like a dog.
What'd they do? Mess up?
It's like a Halloween special, I guess.
Oh.
But not least,
Abel bought the Misprints box this month.
I got a one.
Oh, ooh, yeah.
Right.
Is it who's that? The New Day?
I think so.
No, it's 4.
Like Ninja
That's
Turtles.
crazy.
Yeah, that's a
Ninja
nice shirt.
Turtles wrestling T-shirt. Oh,
Okay, Ninja Turtles wrestling. All right, right on.
that one will be a limited edition. Might not wear that one. And that's it.
That's it. All right.
Pro Wrestling Crate, brought to you by Bobby Platinum.
What's the next one? What's the theme for next one?
The next theme will be
Gobbledygookers.
Yeah.
parodies and more. The number one guy, say his name and he appears.
Beetlejuice?
Boogeyman.
Oh.
Joe Hendry will be featured in the next Pro Crate coming to you.
So that means you're gonna
In
get a pin
November.
or a shirt of Joe Hendry.
Or someone talking.
And Marty McFly.
Doc.
Marty!
The one movie I do not like.
Oh.
Yeah, I said it.
What?
I'm actually with you, Poppy.
Not
You don't like Back to the Future?
Eh,
It's a classic.
overrated.
it is. It is.
The first
I
two
won't
are
take
classic.
that.
I don't care about the third one, but the first
And
two.
I'll probably get hate for this right now. E.T. Go screw.
All right.
No, I don't
All right.
like
I'm out of here.
Hey, I gotta be a heel.
Yeah. You found the line, Poppy. You found the line, and you just crossed it.
That's how you end the show. It's my show, and I'm ended like this. E.T. Go screw.
That audio came in clear.
Yeah, right. All right, well, that wraps up our Mr. McMahon episode. Next week is Platino's Choice for the month of October, and we're going to talk about all things Yokozuna. That's Kamala. But okay. Not Harris. But, yeah. All right. Yokozuna has a birthday coming up, so we're going to acknowledge the original Bloodline member.
There we go.
The original blood tribal chief.
Yes, Rodney.
When he donated blood, he could fill up a whole New London garbage container.
Why are we pretending that the Wild Samoans didn't exist?
Well, they were not the tribal chief. Peter Marquette was.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm the Notorious One. I am Dom Savage. Eddie Long, thank you for being on the show. Definitely have you back soon. Poppy Platino, Stratfax. We will see y'all next time. Boo.
Don't get Fuji'd.